Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. So today, or before that, Omar Ashmawi, there was a little bit of a schedule conflict, so I'm taking his spot today. Today, inshallah, we're talking about Isa alayhi salam, the third of four prophets that we're looking at. And the point of these stories, the point of these conversations is for us to be empowered today. It's not simply to know what happened in the past, but rather how we can more effectively navigate our current terrain. And when you look at the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the challenge that he had to deal with was the challenge of, you could say, rejection, or the challenge of rarely getting what you intended or what you wanted. When you look at the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam, I mean, he wasn't really getting the things that he aspired for. His father didn't believe, his people didn't believe. When he went to Egypt, couldn't stay there, he had to get kicked out. He wanted a child, didn't have a child. Then when he had a child, had to be disconnected from that child. And then we had Ishaq, the second child. He was already an old man. He's like, I'm an old man, what's the point of this? Right? He rarely got what he wanted. And you can see how relevant that was to the companions who, you know, they weren't getting the results that they were looking for, that they were pursuing, but they still have to go on. And then when you look at Musa alayhi salam, his was a challenge of facing tyranny. And the companions were facing tyranny. And today, we're facing tyranny. And when it comes to the life of Isa alayhi salam, his challenge was a challenge of corruption. His enemy wasn't outside of the community. His enemy was the community from within. And for us to appreciate his story and the lessons that come from his story, we have to understand the context. What's going on in his time, before he was even born. His story takes place in the blessed land of Jerusalem and around it, which at that time was under the political jurisdiction of Rome. Rome had defeated whatever empire of the children of Israel was there and pretty much annexed that region into the empire of Rome. And when they did that, you know, as we are accustomed to seeing today in the Western world and how they go about their politics, the Romans, you know, they went to the Jewish community and said, look, let's make a deal. Let's come to an agreement. We will let you all do your thing as Jews. We're not going to enforce our laws on you. You can go ahead and do your laws, right? We won't bother you, but you don't bother us. We will trust that the leadership of the Jewish community of this region, anytime a foreign invader would try to attack the Roman Empire, you are on the front lines. And if anyone from within your community tries to rebel against us, you will squander it for us. They said, okay, we accept that, but we want one thing from you. What's that? If we, the leaders of the Jewish community, deem somebody a heretic, meaning somebody who is outside, someone who is of the community but has done things to disqualify them from the community, that you will go ahead and execute them. The Romans said, that's fine with us. So they come to this pact. And this is the world that Isa alayhi salam is born into. Now, Isa alayhi salam is the son of Maryam, and Maryam is the son of Imran, right, as is in the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises this family as being a blessed family, saying that this is a family that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose. Inna Allah astafa Adama wa Nuhan wa ala Imran wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala al-alameen. I mean, this is very, very prestigious. Allah chose Adam alayhi salam, and he chose the family of Ibrahim, and he chose the family of Nuh, and he chose the family of Imran. So this family is a very blessed family, and his community knows this. And they are also in relationship, somehow, not blood relationship, but it seems like marital relationship, with Zakaria, the Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam. and his son Yahya alayhi salam. So Isa and Yahya are cousins. This is a blessed family, and Isa alayhi salam is being born into this. And we're also familiar with the reality that Isa alayhi salam was born of a mother, but without a father, a miraculous birth. Now, for us, if somebody were to come and say, a lady is pregnant, and she comes and she says, you know, this baby doesn't have a father, we're not going to believe her. And people have tried this, by the way. The mother of Genghis Khan, one of the individuals who's seen as the greatest political and military leaders of all of human history. His empire, the empire that he built, was larger than modern-day Russia. Put that in perspective, right? His mother says that, and all of a sudden she's pregnant, and his mother says that, yeah, I saw the son came to me, and then I was pregnant. Yeah, that didn't happen. We know how you got pregnant. You're just trying to hide it. So why do we believe that Isa alayhi salam was born of a mother, but without a father, when we wouldn't believe that of anybody else? And the answer is because Allah said so. That's it. Prove it. Well, that's the whole point. You can't. You can't prove it. That's the whole point. That's what makes it miraculous. And this is what makes it evidence for his people that I am a messenger of Allah. Now, why did Isa alayhi salam have to be born this way? Like, why did it have to be so miraculous? And this is part of the story as we go on. So Isa alayhi salam is born into this, and as his mother Maryam alayhi salam is carrying him, some people start to notice. Few from within. Because Maryam alayhi salam was privately worshiping Allah under the supervision of Zakaria alayhi salam, the prophet Zakaria. And again, all of this is in the Quran. And she goes and she has this baby. And this is mentioned in the Quran as well. And she says, man, I wish. She's feeling the pains of labor. And in those pains, she's thinking of an even greater pain. The pain of being accused of something horrible. And she's like, man, I wish not only did I not exist, I wish that I wasn't even a memory in the mind of any individual. يا ليتني مت قبل هذا وكنتم نسيا منسيا. I wish I died before this, and I wish everybody would just forget I ever existed. This is the pain. And Allah tells her, take the baby in your hands and go to your people. I mean, can you imagine that? Wallahi, I don't know of a task more difficult than this task right here. I think going to Fir'aun is probably a simpler task than what Maryam had to do. Carrying a child, she knows what she's going to be accused of. And she does that. And the second miracle happens. Isa alayhi salam actually speaks as an infant. And he says, I am the servant of Allah. Allah is going to give me a book. And he made me a prophet. And he made me blessed anywhere I go, and a mercy to mankind. Peace be upon me when I was born and through my life, and when I return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He lays a groundwork of who he is, and he is able to show, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to show his community that Maryam alayhi salam is not guilty of what people are thinking, and this is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Isa alayhi salam grows up under the care of his mother, and then at the age of early 30s, he is tasked with actually starting to preach. To go and actually preach to who? Not to non-Muslims, to the believing community, to the children of Israel. And his task was to do two primary things. One, to speak out against the corruption of the religious class. And number two, to change some of the laws to make it easier on the believers. Two tasks, that's it. He's going to the children of Israel, his people, his crew, to speak out against the corruption of the ruling class, the religious class, the rabbis, so to speak. And number two, to change some of the laws. And he goes and does this. He wasn't tasked with challenging the Roman Empire. He wasn't tasked with any military expeditions, just these two things. And so what happens? Number one, the first form of corruption that he has to deal with is accusing the true righteous people. You see, when Sulaiman alayhi salam sent the message to the Queen of Yemen and said, submit to me and don't try and resist. The queen said, what do we do? She gathered her cabinet, her advisors, said, look, we got this man, right, who's a very powerful individual. He has a lot of might. He's threatening us with war. And this person's language isn't the language of kings and politicians. There's something off here. What do we do? And her cabinet is like, let's fight back. We're powerful. And she says, when foreign entities enter a land, they flip the social hierarchy and they corrupt it. And this is exactly what happened when the colonial powers entered the Muslim world. You know, you watch Bab al-Hara and that stuff? Yeah? It's pretty basic stuff. If you are foreign, you're going into this land, you can't govern it all by yourself. You need some of the help of the locals. But the honest people, the upright people, the people with morals and principles, they're not going to help you. But who will? The people who don't have those things. The scoundrels and the scum of society. And so, okay, you're the ones who are going to help us. We're going to empower you and we're going to make you the leaders. So when you look at the Muslim world, why are the politicians so corrupt? Because this is just one of the aftermaths of colonialism, right? So what needs to happen? If you want corruption, what needs to happen? You need to subdue, defeat, and essentially debase the good and the upright individuals. And so Isa alayhi salam is constantly being attacked, accused of being the son of pretty much a prostitute. Oh, look at that corrupt family. Look how evil they are. I mean, their propaganda and their accusations against this family was so bad that they actually kill Zakaria alayhi salam and they kill his son Yahya. They kill two prophets. Why? Because in order for corruption to flourish, they cannot be challenged by the righteous. Hence the adage, evil rises when the good people don't act. And that's very true. So Isa alayhi salam has to deal with this. But for us today, where's the motivation to do this, right? And it comes from jealousy. When you find people constantly accusing those who we see as decent individuals, as righteous people who are doing good work, and now comes a group of people who are accusing them, you are this, you are that, you are this, you are that. Where's that coming from? And the answer is jealousy. The accuser want what the ones being accused have. And they can't get it themselves. They can't get legitimacy because they have nothing to offer the community. And so what they do, as per the 48 laws of power, is that if they can't get it themselves, they will focus on those who have it and constantly accuse them to gain attention, build attention off of those who are already getting it. Classic, right? So the jealousy aspect. And so a corrupt community is a community that's constantly accusing this and that, this and that. And remember, maybe us growing up, there were a lot of accusations left and right. I'll give you a recent one that I heard. There's a certain institution that had to raise its prices because of something external to their capacity, right? Logistical stuff. They had to raise the prices in order to offset some of the increased expenses. So they start charging their base more in an unexpected way. But that extra charge is not going to the ones who run the institution, it's going to actually sustain the institution. And so, naturally, people are complaining. And some people, they take it up a notch. They start accusing. You see, We can't trust this institution. They're taking the money for themselves. Okay, right? Would it be the first time that something like that would happen? No. But when you actually hone in on the accusation, it's one thing to say, I am upset with this because now I can't afford it, versus, oh, you're trying to take it for yourself. You all see the difference? It is a very big difference. And it says a lot about the accuser. And so for us as a Muslim community, right, we are facing off with tyrants. And these tyrants will do anything and everything to hold their power. Anything and everything. Ethics, morals, dignity, honor, respect. None of that matters. What matters is the power. And so they will go after anyone and everyone, defame them, debase them, to where they will create a multi-billion-dollar industry with the sole function and purpose to make you all look like demons. That right there is jealousy. Jealousy, isn't that just a game of politics? When Allah talks about it, He says it's jealousy. When Allah tells the believers, the companions, hey, when you face off with certain people, they wish you would disbelieve because they are jealous of you. Because they know you have the truth and they didn't get it. And it's not like they want to convert you to their side. No, they just want you to disbelieve, whether you convert to their side or not. That right there is jealousy. And so this first lesson from the story of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam is the spiritual illness of jealousy. And it's one of the major spiritual illnesses. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he warns us of jealousy. Right? Jealousy, as he says in hadith, is as follows. He says, I am not afraid that this ummah will be poor, but rather I'm afraid that this ummah will become wealthy. The doors of prosperity will open for them. And it has. And it is. And it continues to be. Not every single part of the Muslim world, but major parts of the Muslim world enjoy lots of prosperity. And then you will love this world. And in your love of this world, you'll start competing with one another over this world. Where's that competition coming from? Coming from jealousy, right? And then in that competition, you'll eventually start killing each other. That is jealousy, and that's how jealousy becomes corruption. Exactly. That's how jealousy becomes corruption. So Isa alayhi salatu wasalam has to deal with that. The second thing, the second form of corruption, inner corruption he has to deal with, was that religious class, the rabbis. I'm somebody who is pretty open and vocal about kind of educating the community. Don't look at the religious class as all of them being saints. Please don't. They're not all saints. And just to show you the seriousness of this, right? Iblis, Satan, himself, was with who? He was with the angels. He was with the angels. And the angels had no clue that this man was a wolf. He was a devil, literally, a devil. They had no clue. It was only Allah who knew, and only Allah who was able to expose him. And it's a sign for us. It's a lesson for us. Every now and then, somebody from the shuyukh, from the beard, with the beard, and with one of these popular institutions, one of the famous ones who have followers, is going to turn out to be a rotten, apple. Don't be surprised. It is natural. Unfortunate, but natural. And it's not the institution's fault, per se. It is that person's corrupt. And if the angels didn't know the corruption of Iblis, then it's not strange for an organization to not realize it, or not realize it quick enough. Or maybe even see some of the signs, but not really connect the dots. But there will always be an amount of corruption within the religious class. And it differs in terms of how much. Sometimes it's very corrupt, and sometimes it's not so corrupt. In Isa's time, it was incredibly corrupt. because that institution essentially became a place of power and a place of wealth, like the church. You know, they say that the Roman Empire never fell. It just became the church. And so now you have a church. Wallahi, when you look at some of these images from, you know, the Dark Ages, where society is just a wreck, and here you have these fantastically built religious places of worship that are incredibly large. I mean, it just gives you a glimpse over the reality. So, if part of the religious class is corrupt, don't be surprised. It happens, right? Isa alayhi salam has to face this. And to this class, Isa alayhi salam, remember what one of his tasks was? To call out the corruption of the religious class. So now imagine, you're sitting on your chair with the elites of your community, and you're making money off of it, and people go to you, Sheikh, oh Sheikh, oh Sheikh, they start taking selfies with you. That's a Sheikh, wow, right? And now here comes somebody who's sitting there saying, hey, so-and-so, you can't steal money from the poor. Hey, so-and-so, you have to give your zakat. Hey, so-and-so, you have to be kind to people. Hey, so-and-so, you can't do this. What do you think their reaction's naturally going to be, expectedly to be? Right? Oh, that guy is a fraud. He's a fake. And so they start accusing him of being a sorcerer. The guy's a magician, be careful. They start defaming him, character assassinating him. Till this day. Till this day. They say he was a rabbi doing what other rabbis were doing, completely ignoring all of his miracles, and he was corrupt. He was doing it for himself, or whatever their explanation is. They still do it today, right? So there's corruption in the religious class, and that comes from greed. And so we have to be careful in our times today about greed, because America is suffering from greed. You have these billionaires who want to become trillionaires. And now one of them is tasked with, Doge, or whatever it's called. He has to make sure that government spending is very efficient. I wonder how much he's going to make, while he's making the government spending more efficient. I wonder if his company is going to be affected in any way, or magically is going to skyrocket, or any of his affiliates, right? It's greed. Whatever can get me votes, can keep me in power, they'll do it. And so buy yourself a senator. No problem. Right? If you become a multimillionaire, you can start looking, that senator looks cool. I'll go ahead and buy him or her. That's the reality. Corruption. So long as I am making money, how I make it, why I make it, what I do with it, what I need to do to get there means nothing. But not to the believer. So greed is extremely damaging to the community. It's extremely corrupting to the soul, and it causes problems. America 50 years ago, comparison to today, is night and day. Right? What happened? And the answer is, when you have money and more money is coming in, you want more. And as the Prophet ﷺ says, if the child of Adam had a valley of gold, they would want 2 more. And nothing will appease, satisfy the child of Adam except the dirt. In other words, be very careful of your desires, because no matter how much you try to satisfy it, it can never be satisfied, fully satisfied, right? So be careful of greed. And then the third corruption that he was dealing with is the corruption of extremism. What I mean here is ideological extremism. You have one side who accuses him of being, a child of a prostitute, an illegitimate child. And you have another side who says he's God. That's extremism right there. Ideological extremism. And the Prophet ﷺ, or I should say that where this extremism comes from is many places, but what I want to pinpoint is ignorance. A community that is ignorant is a community that is susceptible to corruption. And so when we all, and when we invite you to learn about Islam, we encourage you to learn Islam, when Allah and His Messenger are telling you, seeking knowledge makes your path to paradise easy, seeking knowledge, the angels will come and lower their wings in humility to the seeker of knowledge, right? That seeking knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises their ranks in this life and the afterlife, and all of the virtues surrounding seeking knowledge, right? It's not simply an act of worship. It is one of the ways of reducing corruption on this earth. And sure, there are some people who are knowledgeable, but they are corrupt, right? But a society that has no knowledge is a society that is much more vulnerable to corruption. And again, study the Dark Ages of Europe. That was a very, very ignorant society that was meant to be kept in ignorance so that certain people can stay in charge. When you look at a country that has billions upon billions of dollars, and they invest so little in the education system, it really begs the question, why? I mean, education to the human being is part of the human experience. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He taught Adam. Adam learned. That's what makes him unique, different from other species. And so when you have somebody or a group of people or a society or a government suppressing education, fearful of education, understand why. It's part of keeping themselves in power and allowing corruption to enter, into society. So Isa alayhi salam has to deal with these two ends. And so the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam says, do not do to me what the Christians did to Isa. And the actual wording is, do not praise me the way the Christians praise Isa. They worshipped him. So the Prophet here, alayhi salatu wasalam, is teaching us about what his level is. He's giving us an accurate depiction. This is knowledge. The Prophet is the messenger of Allah, who we owe our obedience to, but that obedience is owed not because he said so, but because Allah said so. And that the Prophet's role in our life is a means to pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the manifestation, the physical manifestation of the Quran. That's his role. And so you have these two extremes, and they're coming from ignorance, right? The Prophet is telling us, you have to know where things belong. Priorities, what is really important. And for Americans, we have no idea how to prioritize. Wallahi, we don't. We have no idea what are our priorities. Hence, all the problems come. So part of educating ourselves, getting out of ignorance, is understanding our priorities. Hence, the Quran is all about, these are your priorities. Allah is your number one priority. Prayer is a top priority. Fasting, giving zakat, these things are a top priority. And so when I say seek knowledge, I don't mean you have to become the next scholar. But what it means is you at least know enough to be able to know how to prioritize the world around you, how to how to protect yourself from corruption. Also, educating our children, right? Educating them in a proper, appropriate way, not falling into what we're seeing now a lot. College is a scam, right? And this stuff. Now, college is unbelievably expensive and unreasonably expensive. And college isn't the only way to build your professional life, right? But we have to be careful in not teaching the next generation that education is unimportant. That's how a lot of people are going to understand it. College is a scam, that means education is not needed. No, education is needed. The way colleges are currently being administered and organized that's where the scam is, right? So Isa alayhi salam has to deal with extremism. Do we have extremes in our community? Oh yeah. A lot better than 20 years ago. A lot better than 20 years ago. But some of the extremes, when it comes to our current situation, the extreme of feminism and the extreme of red pill. These are extremes. Not every aspect of either belief or either kind of view is extreme or inappropriate. But the movements have become radical. Both have become radical. Hence, they're trying to rip each other apart. I'm not saying the Muslim community has succumbed to this, but we see elements of it here. There is a type of extremism when it comes to how parents parent or how children view their parents, where some parents think that they can dictate anything and everything in the life of the child, and the child just has to submit blindly. To the extent that, I had a lady reach out to me. She's 34, and she says, my father has a business, and he tried to marry me to one of my cousins. This is not in America, obviously. He tried to marry me to one of my cousins. I didn't like him. I didn't want to get married, but he pressured me. She said, later on, I found out he just wanted me to marry him so that he can get residency in the country that we're living and so that he can employ him in his company. Because that's a type of extremism. That's a type of corruption. I mean, such behavior is going to corrupt that young lady, right? And the opposite as well. Parents who give no value, or children who give no value to their parents. That's part of corrupting the society as well. And we see this in America, right? How children talk to their parents, how they view their parents, right? How irrelevant their parents are to their lives, how much they disregard and neglect their parents. It's a type of extremism. To the extent that, there's this guy, an Arab who goes around America and just vlogs and whatnot. And he's talking about the homelessness in California and Los Angeles and Skid Row and whatnot. So he goes to this lady in this homeless area. He's talking to her. And he's like, don't you have any children? She's like, yeah, I have 3 boys. It's okay, why don't you go and live with them? It's like, yeah, I don't want to bother them. Oh, really? Even if she's trying to be kind to them, like, let's just interpret that as she's trying to be, accommodating to their needs. Those children better not accept that. Force her if needed, right? There's a type of extremism there. And all of this comes from ignorance. So here, in the story of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, you have him dealing with these 3 types of corruption that corrupt a community. The corruption of jealousy. They accused him and his family of being corrupt so that they sidelined them to prevent them from being any source of influence on broader society. The greed of the religious class, the rabbis, and they fought against Isa alayhi salam in order to maintain their status and what they're getting from their status. And then ignorance and how that corrupted many societies into types of extremism. Now, they couldn't stop Isa's miracles, and they couldn't dissuade him from his mission. So what did they do? Remember that pact with the Romans? Remember how they said, if we deem anyone a heretic, then we want you to execute him? The rabbis get together. They say, this is somebody who's trying to cancel the Sabbath. And 1, 2, 3, remember how I said he came to lighten the load on the children of Israel? You see, he's a heretic. He's changing the religion. And he had the authority to. So they write, a letter to the Romans, say, we have deemed this individual a heretic. By, our agreement, you must come and execute him. So the Romans come, and they're looking for Isa alayhi salam, and Allah reveals to him. Right? فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ عِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرِ قَالَ مَنْ أَنصَارِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. When Isa alayhi salam realized that these people, they're no hope, Allah tells him, that's it, they're coming after you. He goes to his group that actually believed in him and said, they're coming to crucify me. I need somebody to take my place. This is one narration. I need somebody to take my place. So none of them took the initiative. The youngest of them said, I'll do it. So Isa alayhi salam said, no, you're too young. Someone else. Nobody volunteered. He volunteered a second time. No, you're too young. He volunteered a third time, and he said, fine, so be it. Now Isa alayhi salam wiped him, and he looked like Isa alayhi salam. And so when the Romans came, they captured him, not Isa alayhi salam, because by that time Allah ascended him to the heavens. And they crucify this volunteer. That's one opinion within the Islamic scholastic corpus. The other opinion, it's a more popular opinion, is that the Romans couldn't find Isa alayhi salam. But there was someone from within his inner circle who ratted him out. The informant? One of those guys. ratted Isa alayhi salam out to the Romans, exposing where he was. So Isa alayhi salam said, okay, he's coming, Allah lifts him up, and when the Romans go to where Isa alayhi salam was, his mole, the ratter, was already there, but Allah made him look like Isa alayhi salam. So they took him and they crucify him. And this is how Muslims explain what's in the Bible, I guess. While Isa is being crucified, he said, God, why have you forsaken me? Right? It wasn't Isa alayhi salam who said it, it was the one who ratted him out. And he's like, oh my God, how is this happening? So this is what happens. They do this. Now, to conclude, us today, alhamdulillah, the American Muslim community is healthy. It's not perfect. It's not free of corruption, nor will it ever be free of corruption. If the community of the Prophet ﷺ had an amount of corruption within, there were the hypocrites, there were those who did wrong, there were those who stole, there were those who fornicated, and stuff like this. Of course, the Prophet addressed them all. We will never reach perfection. So don't expect it from the Muslim community. But there will be an amount of corruption, whether it's internal or external. And when Isa alayhi salam, as the verse I just quoted, فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ عِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرِ قَالَ مَنْ أَنصَارِ إِلَى اللَّهِ. We Muslims, how do we challenge corruption? How do we deal with it? Well, it begins with Isa alayhi salam's statement, who is with me to promote the cause of Allah? Who will help me promote the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It begins with a mindset. It begins with a commitment. So really, to yourself, on your way home, ask yourself the question, how committed am I to the cause of Islam? Yeah, your salah is one thing, your salah, your zakah, your fasting, that's incredibly important. There's also another element. What is your mindset? How committed are you to this? Are you committed to the level where you can deem yourself an ansar of Allah? Somebody who helps the cause, is committed to the cause, or not? And the more of us who are committed to the cause, the more we can challenge those who are causing corruption. Because wallahi, as you all already know, there are people who are in powerful positions who, wallahi, if they can take the drops of water that enter your morsel, wallahi, they would. If they can rob you of the clothes on your back right now, wallahi, they would. And that can only happen if there aren't people committed to the truth. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be people who are ansar of Allah, ansar ilallah, I should say, those who are helpers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be very careful of these three things within yourself: jealousy, greed, and ignorance. Be very careful of it within yourselves, and commit to contributing to the Muslim community in a way that can resolve one of these things in the community. To remove ignorance, to help promote generosity in order to defeat greed, and to help promote unity and cohesion to defeat jealousy. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. All right. Before I ask if there are any questions, OCIF started a family service committee. And this committee seeks to do what it's titled, to serve the family. This includes helping individuals with finding spouses, helps them when it comes to premarital not counseling, but premarital education, post-marriage, parenting, masculinity, femininity. We're not going to create matrimonial services, but how can we help the community make this very important part of the human experience, family and marriage, a little bit easier? Because we know it's one of the biggest challenges of our times today. So I have a very, very short survey that I'm going to request you all take. It should take you no more than 3 minutes. And the survey, in a nutshell, is for us to better understand what were your hesitations, what are or were your hesitations when you were looking for marriage or as you look for marriage. This is completely anonymous. We won't have your emails, right? So we won't know who's saying what. All we want to know is when you got married or the process of getting married, what were the things that kind of held you back a little bit, put fear in your heart about this step? Or if you're somebody who's yet to get married, what are some of the things that are concerning you in this regard? So I'm just going to share on the screen here in a second. So if you can scan the QR code and let us know. Again, whether you are married, single, divorced, tell us about your experiences. If one of the, Ibrahim, can you share in the group chat? All right. So while people are finishing up the survey, if anyone has any questions, mashallah, we have a preemptive strike here. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Yeah. Hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, if you haven't already noticed, social media is everyone saying everything. Some people say if you want to build a core, your abs, do planks. Other people say don't do planks, you're wasting time. Right? If you just sit there absorbing social media, you'll end up in utter confusion, right? So who do we go to? Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi says the following. Scholars are known in two ways. Both have to happen. One, the broader community views this individual as a scholar. All right? They're not a self-proclaimed scholar. It is the community that has elevated this person to a scholar. Number two, they publicly take questions. They publicly take questions. Why? Because I can't prepare for that. Now you all are just throwing questions at me. I have to answer in real time. I can't sit there Googling, and now they have these debates and they have computers in front of them and they sit there like, what kind of a debate is that? Right? I have either I know or I don't know. So when the broader community sees, they kind of agree that this person is authentic. It's hard for a large group of people to agree on something. So that's kind of a checkpoint. The other checkpoint is this person is comfortable speaking publicly and taking questions publicly, or else those who say no, no Q&A, no Q&A. Well, why not? What are you afraid of, right? So that's how you know. And the bigger names of the American Muslim community are fine. Not all of them are at the same level of knowledge, right? Some of them are great speakers, but their knowledge level is, intermediate. Some of them are, intermediate speakers, but their knowledge levels are higher. But in general, none of these uh, more popular individuals, based on my own listening to them, none of them are speaking madness. Put it that way. Yeah. hmm Well, you have to have a system, right? In America, if you accuse someone of something and it's false, you could uh, you could do a defamation case, right? So there needs to be certain systems at play where when people make a claim, they have to prove it, or else it's meaningless. That system is there, then it will help mitigate. It's not going to completely eradicate, but it'll help mitigate the amount and the severity and whether the accusations catch on. But when there's no system, like social media, right, then it's wild, wild west. Especially when you have bots now. There's people viewing videos of mysterious individuals who pop out of nowhere, right? And they get a bunch of comments. You don't know if those comments are even real. Yeah, from Saddam. Why what? Who? Zakaria alayhi salam. I don't know the exact story. I don't know what triggered it, but these are prophets who were commanding the good and forbidding the evil, and it ticked off the people who were benefiting from corruption. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I think after. I think it was after he was elevated. Yeah. Because the lack of either the Quran doesn't clarify, right? The Quran says it was made to seem like Isa alayhi salam was crucified. That's what the Quran says. Okay, how was it made to seem? And then there are different narrations in hadith that give each one. But I haven't dove in to determine which narration is stronger than the other. But the more popular opinion is that the one who ratted him out was made to seem as though he was Isa alayhi salam. Yes. Really cold back there? Rahim, can you sure we got you. Any other questions? Iman? That's what I think. Yeah, that's what it said in the Bible or whatever the Christian narrations. Judah. Judah or Judas? Judas? Judas, right? But the Christians believe that Isa alayhi salam was crucified. Stay with me, guys. We're almost done. Salam. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. That's a very important point. Yeah. avoid social media, interact with people. I'm not saying you can't benefit anything from social media, but if you really want to ground yourself and you want to make sure, talk to the people who are physically there, right? Right. Any other questions? Crazy. Like I said, the Free Syrian Army is now making videos of Assad, claiming that he has resigned and whatnot. Right? It's warfare, man. It's warfare. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. Sure. What I would say is the leaders of the community need to start educating parents to tone it down with the cost of marriage. Weddings, the wedding parties are honestly so unnecessary, right? Keep it simple. I mean, I'm not saying don't have a wedding. Keep it simple. It doesn't have to be $50,000, right? Which is becoming more standard these days, right? I mean, smaller weddings are costing around $30,000 these days. So that's the biggest expense, right? And again, I'm not saying shatter the dreams of your fiance where, where she wanted to have that special day. Have a special day that doesn't cost so much, right? So that's what I would say. We have to facilitate it as much as possible because the challenges are real and the damage it's causing society as a whole is tremendous. Yeah, but that's what we're hoping to start doing with this committee. So, anything else? All right, Jazakumullah khair, everyone.
Let's give a round of applause to Sheikh Tark. We don't have any concrete announcements to make. All I will say is that we are teaming up with our friends at MYP to have a sporting event and social. More details are going to be announced later on. Just check on our Instagram if you're not already